Hello everyone, this is Erik, the Asian movie enthusiast, and this is my review of Le Portrait de Petite Cossette, also known as The Portrait of Little Cossette, a Japanese anime romance horror film from 2004. Now technically, this is a 3-episode OVA, also known as an original video animation, which basically means that it's direct-to-video, with each segment lasting around 35 minutes each. But since the sum of these 3 parts is basically the length of a feature film, one could be forgiven for treating it as such, and that's basically what I do for this one. I consider this to be a feature film. So here's the plot synopsis for you. A young man uncovers a delicate Venetian glass that holds a startling secret within. A haunted beauty, Cossette, has been waiting 250 years for someone to set her spirit free. The man soon becomes obsessed and determined to help the girl trapped inside of the crystal, but the necessary physical and psychological sacrifices might be too great for even him to bear. Now, the first thing to point out with Petite Cossette is that this film is one of the most visually stunning anime I've ever seen. Virtually every single frame is saturated with fantastical gothic eye candy. The use of color is a real treat for the eyes here. There's a wide variety of color schemes that are used throughout. It really has a beautiful mix and keeps changing things up, which means that the viewer will constantly be mesmerized by its presentation. This is supplemented by 2 creative choices by the filmmakers. First, the protagonist is transported via the Venetian glass into a nightmarish world. Now, this allows the filmmakers to go all out on the visuals, and they certainly do that here. Second, the environments and old-school architecture designs are very cool to behold. There are a few flashbacks that are set in the real world that have a European vibe to them, and many of the nightmare world, for lack of a better term, sequences showcase otherworldly objects and phenomena. So all of these things kind of come together and create a fantastic visual experience. Now, as if that weren't enough, the scoring in this film is just as phenomenal. Some beautiful music is composed for this film. To describe it, it's very romantic, magical, and mysterious. There's a lot of piano and violin that are used throughout. The music in Petite Cossette, I think, is a true accomplishment that should be mentioned more often when people talk about their favorite anime music. The official soundtrack is actually widely available. You can get it on Amazon, and I highly recommend that you pick up a copy, especially if you watch the film and you like the music. I actually have the official soundtrack myself, and I listen to it a lot. But you see, the positives of Petite Cossette are not just limited to its visual and audio qualities, because the characters in the story are actually quite fascinating here. Now, this girl's spirit is basically cursed, because in order to release her from that curse, she needs a human being who is willing to endure the pain and suffering that should have befallen her murderer. So in a Christ-like fashion, a man must willingly endure the reckoning of her murderer, to basically take the place of her murderer and receive the punishment that her murderer should have received in order for her to be redeemed. But in some sense, and this is where it gets even more interesting, is that the girl herself is emotionally conflicted with this scenario because she doesn't want to see someone she cares for suffer to such a degree. So their relationship is very interesting here. Also, there's a dense romantic tone that actually mirrors the horrific type elements, and I'm a big fan of when romance and horror are expertly blended together, and this movie is an emphatic example of that. Now, the themes, the general themes of love, sacrifice, and haunted imagery are blended together because painting and artistry are introduced and become very important themes in their own right. There's a few really cool scenes near the end of this movie involving painting and images that's a highlight. I'll leave it at that. As one online reviewer noted, I believe it was iforfilm.uk, quote, "The result is a creepy riff on beauty, love, the madness of artists, and the treachery of images," unquote. And that really does sum things up nicely for Petite Cossette. Now, with all that said, there is one aspect of this film that could prove frustrating for some viewers. There is some surreal imagery that may confuse you. So the script intentionally keeps the viewer off balance with events that may not be easily interpreted during a first viewing. Now I say this because there are some moviegoers out there who need everything explained thoroughly, with no ambiguity or loose ends. If you're one of those people, there might be some moments in this film that will frustrate you. But nevertheless, the general course of events is very easy to understand. It's just that there are some specific scenes that will require some effort and thinking from the viewer to interpret the details. But in my opinion, Le Portrait de Petite Cossette qualifies as a work of art, and it's one of my favorite anime films of all time. Most fortunately, it is widely available on DVD, so be sure to watch it, if you don't mind some disturbing imagery peppered in and some ambiguity to steer through. So as always, we'll see you next time.